Welcome back to Footballology. So up next we have the San Francisco 49ers for the offseason grade. Now, when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers, they're a talented roster. They had everything that they could ask for. They had a really strong offseason. Granted, it was coming off of a Super Bowl loss, but they had a good, strong offseason, and they felt like that they could get even better and possibly get back to the Super Bowl in 2020. But we fast forward and we look at 2020, and they couldn't find a healthy player. Some of their best players were on IR by week 3 or week 4, and it wasn't their fault. There's nothing you can do about that. No matter how talented your roster is, no matter how deep your roster is, sometimes if you don't have healthy players out there, you can't put out a quality product. And when we look at the offensive side of the ball, missing guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, Debo Samuel for a majority of the year. Um, the running back position was in turnstiles. Like they couldn't find a healthy running back. They were losing guys left and right. It got really bad to the point where if we were playing Madden with the Niners were like, can we turn injuries off for a few weeks? Because I think they even lost George Kittle at one point too. So it's like, yeah, they just could not find a healthy player, and it's not their fault. Like I said, from an organization standpoint and from a coaching standpoint, you did everything you possibly could. I think one Monday night game, they were joking that they were talking about pulling people off the streets, and that was serious. Like even like Nick Bosa on the defense side of the ball, like they lost so many good players. Solomon Thomas, I think, was another guy they lost too, and they can stay healthy on the back end of the defense. Like this team was just riddled with injuries. That's just what their 2020 season was. And if you're a Niners fan, you kind of swallowed that pride pill, and you're like, all right, whatever. But I know how talented and how deep this roster really is. I can't really knock the 2020 season for the Niners just because of all those injuries. Like one or two injuries, maybe even five injuries, that's fine. When it's what 8, 9, 10 plus injuries, and there was key positions and key players in those positions, it kind of hurts you guys. Getting guys like Javon Kinlaw though made me really have hope for this roster because losing to Forrest Buckner, a lot of people thought that this defense was going to take the not a wrong direction or not going the wrong direction, but they just didn't know how productive this defense was going to be without that stellar front that they had before. And Kinlaw came in and he showed up and showed out. It was just unfortunate that they lost a lot of pieces like they did. Like I said, their 2020 season, if you're a Niners fan, I get it if you want to just kind of erase it from your mind and move on from it. So that's what we're going to do here. We're just going to go ahead and move on from the 2020 season because it was just injury riddled and there's nothing you can do about that. So now when we move on to the free agency period for the Niners, you look at guys like Simpson and Buchanan coming over from, I want to say, the Rams. That's a guy that's just going to add some speed and quickness to your linebacking core, which with Fred Warner just recently today signing that big contract, which is pretty cool. So getting even faster at the linebacker position. Alex Mack, clutch signing. I think Alex Mack is still one of the top centers in the league, if not one of the best, if not the best center in the league, in my personal opinion. Borderline biased because I've been an Alex Mack fan forever, but great signing there. Getting Trent Williams back at left tackle, really clutch, especially for 6 years. I don't know about that length on that contract. That's the one thing that I would probably have the biggest issue with. Is it's not re-signing Trent, it's the length of the contract that you sign Trent. Trent is getting up there in age. If he lives out the term of that contract playing at a I want to say an all pro level, just at a consistent level, then that's okay. Like I can live with that. But that kind of scares me a little bit with that 6 year contract for Trent. And then we move on down the list a little bit more. Getting Jaquiski Tart back, I think that's really clutch. For even for 1 year, the safety position is something that I think that they were struggling with. Jordan Willis, a defensive end, that's a cheapy sign right there for 1 year because I think Jordan Willis still has a lot of ball. He's just been kind of bouncing around the league at this point. But hopefully the Niners is the perfect team for him, just for the simple fact that they have that stellar front, and then he just becomes a solid rotational piece. He probably won't start, but he'll be a solid rotational piece for them for sure. Mohamed Sanu at the wide receiver position. Now that was one thing that I felt like that regardless of who they had on the roster, I never felt like the Niners wide receiver position was as strong. I love Debo Samuel, I love Brandon Ayuk. I think those guys are clutch, but I never felt like that was one of the best units they had on the field, and I felt like that was something that they needed to target more going into this offseason. So getting Mohamed Sanu definitely makes sense to me. I think that's a really good strong signing for them. Nate Stuffield's quarterback depth. Key from I think he came over from the Raiders, and with him, I think dude was like I want to say he came from LSU, and he was like a long, lengthy pass rusher, quick another pass rusher. Once again, just creating depth along that defensive front. I think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan understand that the true strength of this team is that defensive line, and they need to get back to that because that was one thing that carried them to the Super Bowl in 2019. Wayne Gollum, I've been a really big fan of Wayne Gollum since he got into the league. I thought that he could have been a starting running back when he was with the Giants, but that was me being biased once again. But I thought Wayne Gollum had a lot to prove. And so, once again, just a 1 year signing, a guy that can come in and create depth, maybe create some competition at the running back position because I feel like at this point it was just the lack of bodies more or less than anything. And I think that was one thing that they went into this offseason doing, was just trying to find bodies and trying to find players to bring in. Marquise Hurst, that the defensive tackle, once again another Raider, and I want to say he came from Michigan. That guy had nothing but tremendous upside, creating more depth along that defensive front. Like I said, John Lynch understands that where his true opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl is that defensive line, and so getting a guy like Hurst makes sense. Marquise Lee, another wide receiver, and we're gonna stop at Benny Fowler. And as you can see, getting two more wide receivers to add to the receiving core is more Fowler and Lee. You just need to add depth and hopefully some talent there. Now Lee is pretty decent coming over from the Jaguars, but I don't know if he's number one material. At this point, looking at these signings and looking at possible players that are coming back, I still feel like the Niners are hurting at the number one receiver spot. I feel like they don't have that true one target, and I get it because when you look at the offensive side of the ball for the Niners, it's more or less predicated on the run game, George Kittle, and then some of the receivers. And so I think that's what they're going to lean towards this year, even with the quarterback they have in place now. Taking a look at the Niners draft class, getting Trey Lance in number three overall was it had to happen. Any other quarterback in that position would have been useless. And I'm gonna tell you why. We knew for a fact anybody that's a true football fan, any Niners fan out there who actually pay attention to their team, know that Kyle Shanahan wanted a mobile quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo was a traditional passer, and I think Kyle Shanahan was stepping out of his comfort zone a wee bit just to see if he can actually make that happen, and it didn't work out too well for him. Getting a guy that has a slightly more mobility in his game than Trey Lance definitely improves this offense tremendously because now that quarterback doesn't stay so stagnant. Now we're going to see a lot more bootlegs. As a Chiefs fan, and and have the Chiefs going up against Mike Shanahan and seeing that bootleg, Jake the Snake is what they call him, because that man will leak out the back door and everybody's seen it coming. And so I see a lot more bootlegs in the Niners' future. And if you get those hard play action fakes like that, oh, I mean, we're talking about big plays for George Kittle. We're talking about big plays for some of the receivers on the outside. And that's what it's really going to be about because Trey Lance can not only take off with the ball, but he definitely has the arm strength to push the ball down the field. So that pick alone carries this whole entire offseason, in my opinion. Trey Lance had to be a Niner. Mac Jones couldn't be a Niner. Justin Fields, maybe Justin Fields. Justin Fields, but that was a long shot. If you made me pick between Lance and Fields, I'm still taking Lance in this case. But I could see Fields just as much, but his mobility would definitely play a bigger role, I think, in what Niners wanted to do. But I don't know if they see more upside in Trey Lance. So I was right on board with the Trey Lance pick. And then moving on to the pick number two, or in the second round pick, Aaron Banks. I said this in, I think it was my Miami video. We need to start praising Notre Dame. Like for the longest time, in my opinion, when we were talking about tight ends, I automatically went to Notre Dame. If I was a team that needed a tight end, go to Notre Dame. All that bull. But right now, if you need an offensive lineman, you're going to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is just pooping out offensive linemen right now, left and right. And if you need one and you need a really solid guard or a tackle, whatever you're leading, they got one for you, okay? And so I'm pretty sure it was Miami got one and Eckenberg. And now we move on to Aaron Banks, a guard for the Niners. And I watched this man play. This man is exactly what the Niners need. A guy that has good size. He's big, great size to him, but high level mobility that's going to be able to move out of the pocket or move the pocket with them, do those screen plays, do those stretch zone plays like Shanahan wants to do. I mean, this guy has that system written all over him, so it's going to be really dangerous because once he gets his hand on some people, he moves people. He is a people mover for sure. And then Trey Sermon. Now, I didn't know much about Trey Sermon until the college playoffs this last year. Him and Ohio State, I think they were going up against, I want to say Clemson. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I can't recall. But anyways, they were talking about him, and I started kind of getting hip to him. But the one thing they kept repeating was that he's kind of injury prone. He's had some injuries that really hurt his career, and that was one thing that I think he ended up getting hurt in the college playoffs too. And it was unfortunate because it looked like he was doing something great. And so with Trey Sermon, I think that he is a perfect running back once again. Like Kyle Shanahan made this draft saying, I'm going to build this draft the way I see fit for my team. And if I go out, I want to go out swinging as Kyle Shanahan and not as me trying to pretend to be somebody else. So guys like Lance, Banks, and Sermon are three picks that I feel like have Kyle Shanahan written all over him because they're offensive picks, A, but B, they are guys that are going to do exactly what he needs them to do within the system. And then moving on to some of the other players, there was yeah. So the fifth round pick, Talano Hafuga. I swear to God, I said his name really decent earlier, not just butchered that. But anyways, that guy, he's a USC safety, and I've seen him play, and I was kind of excited for him. Not saying that he's going to be an instant starter, but a guy that can contribute a lot on special teams, a guy that's going to give them a lot of good reps there. But at the same time, I feel like could possibly find his way on a starting defense, especially in the secondary. As you guys can see, in the third round and in the fifth round, they double down in the cornerback position. Losing guys like Richard Sherman back there definitely has a fact or plays a role because you need corner play in this league. The way this league is trending, you need a stronger secondary. And I think they're going to be really high powerful on offense. So you got to have something on defense. And I know you don't need a lot, especially with the pass rush that they currently have in place. You're not going to need a lot from these guys. But I'm really interested to see what this secondary is going to look like for the Niners because I think that's probably right now, as it sits, is the weakest unit on this roster. So with that being said, I got to give the San Francisco 49ers an A. One thing I've learned this year is that if you're going to go out swinging as yourself. And if Kyle Shanahan is truly on the hot seat, or people believe that he should be on the hot seat, or anything along those lines, him and John Lynch both, go out swinging as you. You know, like make sure that you've done everything in your power to the best of your ability to give yourself the best chance to have success. And that draft shows me that the free agency period has some of that in there. These guys are truly trying to build the roster that they believe is going to give them the best chance to win, but lets them go down fighting. If I get fired, I want to get fired for being Kyle Shanahan. I don't want to get fired for being somebody else or trying to pretend to be somebody else. I want to have a mobile quarterback who can push the ball down the field when I need him to. I want to have a true running game that can lean on people when I need it to. I want to have a career, like John Lynch. From John Lynch standpoint, John Lynch. I mean, some of the teams he played on, what did they have? A ferocious front. And John Lynch knows as a safety, I can do more damage if I have a better front than other corners and safeties. Let me have a ferocious front, and John Lynch goes out and does that. I think that these guys are really intentional about what they're doing this year because they know that if we go out, we're gonna go out as ourselves and not anyone else. And so for that, I gotta give them respect. You got to give them an A for that alone. But that draft class was really strong. You got pieces that can possibly contribute today, but you don't need to contribute right away. But they're gonna possibly contribute right away, or could contribute right away. I can't talk anymore. And those pieces are really intentional and just really smart. I can't get away from that. And then obviously the guys that you got coming back from injury, if this team stays healthy, it sucks that you have to put that out there. But if this team can stay healthy, they would be right back in the Super Bowl. It would be really hard to see any other team in the league right now to beat them with some of the linebackers play that they're going to have, with the defensive line play they're going to have alone, and then with the way this offense is trending. If Trey Lance winds up being a starter, oh, it is over for some teams in the West. Let me call it what it is. But that's all I have for you guys. If you're a Niners fan, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Is there a transaction that I didn't talk about that you feel like has a bigger impact on the offseason that I didn't give it credit to? Let me know what you think. I'm definitely can't wait to hear from you guys. And if you're not a footballologist yet, I don't know what you're waiting on. I'm going to hit that subscribe button today, become a footballologist, and stay safe, football fans.